Our next guest has been named one of the world's 10 most influential intellectuals by MIT. Hey now. And he is an author and a documentarian who studies human autonomy in the digital age. His latest book, Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires, buy it now, is out right now. Please welcome to the South by Southwest studio, Douglas Rushkoff. Doug, thanks for joining us. You are very tough on this beleaguered species, the billionaires. Why? Why are you just after them so much?
Well, I'm not after them. I want to help them. I want to help encourage them, reform them. No, I'm more, I don't have any problem with the particular billionaire so much as the billionaire mindset.
What is the billionaire mindset?
Well, it's a kind of extreme form of techno-solutionism where human beings are the problem and technology is the solution. So they end up with this worldview, which is like, how much money do I need to make to be able to insulate myself from the problems I'm creating by earning money in that way, right? And it's sort of like, that's the tech dream, the ultimate exit strategy. How do I get away from all those people and kind of rise above the chrysalis of matter as pure AI super consciousness and get my island or my bunker or my, mind clone to get away from all those strange and scary humans.
The plebeians, the peasants, the proletariat. Now, we joke about that, but what we're witnessing right now are stories, right? Stories of very rich folks creating underground bunkers in the case of the apocalypse, spaceships, rockets. What are some of the things that billionaires are doing to escape?
Well, none of them really will work, right? That's first off. I mean, I went to this meeting. I thought I was doing a talk for a bunch of rich tech people.
This is the beginning of the book.
Yeah,
sounds like the opening of a James Bond, right?
I know.
You went to a secret location, picked up in a limo.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be to do a talk, and it turned out it was 5 billionaires came in the green room and sat around this table, started asking me, do we go to Alaska or New Zealand? How do we deal with the water supply? How do we maintain control of our security force after our money is worthless? So these guys, and what I realized though was that these guys, it's not so much that they're afraid of the apocalypse or the electromagnetic pulse or the pandemic or social unrest or climate refugees. It's actually, they're using all of those global problems as an excuse to build these fantasy kingdoms. In the old William Randolph Hearst could build his castle. He just built his castle.
Xanadu in space.
Exactly. But Xanadu in space, how do they justify it? It's through all this disaster planning. But really, the underlying urge is to get away from us. And that's really what I'm trying to explore. Where does that urge come from? How did science, technology, and money somehow combine to lead these dudes to want to just go meta, as Zuckerberg might put it, to go meta on the real world?
Like literally and figuratively just exodus. But you said something, you said all these plans will fail. And I want to talk about some of these plans. I was reading in The Guardian. I mean, I'm not making this up. Like, they are planning right now massive bunkers, strategy plans, paramilitary force, spaceships, other inhabitable places, cryogenics, right? Anything to escape. And you're saying, after doing all the research, all of those plans are doomed to fail. Why?
Yeah, well, talk to any self-respecting prepper, any real prepper, and the first thing he'll tell you is, the first thing you have to do is get your community on board. Real preppers understand that we make it together or none of us makes it. Because they've all seen the Twilight Zone episode where their families got their bomb shelter and they go down because they hear the alarms and all the other families are banging on the door.
And also a great Simpsons episode, which shows you the fallacy of that.
Exactly. Because in the end, it doesn't work. You're going to have to spend most of your energy holding the rest of us back. And it's the woman on the end of the driveway on the other side of the fence with a crying baby. How are you going to deal with that? I mean, you've got to basically insulate your psyche so you don't care. But if you don't think about human beings as people, right? If you're happy for the future of the human race to be, some human cyborg, AI that you spread out into the heavens. I mean, talk to the effective altruists. They'll say the 8 billion people alive today, they're just the larval stage of humanity, like the maggots. But the robots that we send throughout the universe, there's going to be trillions of them, and it's okay if we sacrifice ourselves for the benefit of those future consciousnesses.
I think Dostoevsky was writing about this, the Superman, the Crime and Punishment, and you talk about the billionaire mindset, and you research it. with that much money, this godforsaken, some would say, amount of money, does it do something to a person where it removes them from the rest of us?
Apparently, scientifically, apparently so. The studies are showing, and I've got some of them, cited in the book. You take a billionaire and put them in an MRI machine and show them a picture of a starving baby. There are parts of their brain that are supposed to light up, or supposed to light up for the rest of us. All those compassion centers, they don't light up. Right? So then you're going to wonder, well, were they born this way? And that's what lets them get to the millions? I don't think so. I think what you have to do to earn billions of dollars is shut certain things off. So yeah, what we know now...
So it comes at that cost, you think?
I think it does. It comes at the cost of your humanity.
It's a bold statement, sir.
Well,
some billionaires would be like, I'm not a villain. I'm a good person. Why are you demonizing all this?
I'm a good person, right, and I'm going to use AI to program the world so they behave in the way that I know is better for them. I've got technology. I'm going to use social media and algorithms and AIs to get human beings to rise to the occasion of who I think they are.
And when you listen to some billionaires, right, they'll say, I have a humble origin story. My parents were immigrants. I came to America. The dream. I just pulled myself up from the bootstraps and I got lucky. Anybody could do it, but yeah, I got lucky. Your response to that?
You got lucky enough to do what? I remember my dad, rest his soul, he used to drive us down. We lived in Westchester, nice suburb. He would drive us down to the city where he was raised, in Harlem. And he'd say, I was raised up there. I lived there, me and 9 cousins. We, took a bathtub we had a bucket in the kitchen that we used as a bathtub. And I, worked hard and went to night school and raised money so I could get us out of there and where you live, right? Out of there to where we live. So the impulse is to leave where you are to get somewhere better rather than to make where you are better and livable. And so the problem with the billionaire is what was motivating that to begin with. It's the motivation is to separate from humanity.
But don't we all do this to an extent? Because think about it, not just billionaires. We're talking about phasing things out, not seeing the reality. Suburbs,
right?
Gated communities, immigrants who make it, the model minority.
Right.
I don't have to see them. I don't have to see the lower income. So, what you're describing as billionaires is probably that mindset on steroids.
Exactly, that mindset on both capital and digital steroids. It goes to the extreme. So then what you have to do is try to flip that script, is try to help people see that, the fact that I need a car to get to work is not a condition of nature. It's a condition of GM lobbying the government to move the suburbs over there and to get rid of the streetcars. So the world you live in, where the things that you accept are, well, this is just nature, this is just reality, that I've got to earn this money and get to that suburbs and get to that, that's not the way things have to be. So what I'm hoping we can do is use the digital sensibility, instead of figuring out how to hack the world in order to get what I want, we reprogram the society that we're living in, piece by piece.
So reprogramming, let's flip the script. We're at South by Southwest. We invite brilliant folks to imagine a better future. So you're saying, okay, billionaires, if the billionaires are watching, and they're probably a bit offended right now, there's hope for you. Instead of escaping, what would you recommend them using their luck and their money and their capital and their power to do? How can they invest back in humanity?
To start, and let's use SXSW lingo, right?
Okay.
So a lot of people here, they're into startups, right? So this is the startup economy. So imagine, how could I construct a startup that has no exit? What would that look like if the point of making the company is not to light the match and throw it away before it burns me, but to create a company that I'd want to keep being part of, a sustainable company? What would it be like to create a company that doesn't have to scale infinitely for it to be successful? What if, I remember, I'm friends with Evan Williams, one of the people who started Twitter. And I remember when Twitter was making $2 billion a year, it was considered an abject failure by Wall Street.
I remember.
Because it was considered, that's where it stopped. It's not growing anymore. You mean a 140-character cell phone messaging app makes $2 billion a year? You should be able to consider that good, sustainable.
That's a success.
That's a win.
Yeah.
But when it's so, what I would challenge them is, what if you develop a business plan that lets you plateau, How would that be to create a sustainable business that's just fine?
That's enough. Plateauing is enough for me. But people are listening right now. They're like, I need an exit strategy. Look what just happened in Silicon Valley. Look what just happened a couple of days ago.
Why did that happen? Because people exited the bank, right? Because Peter Thiel went, we just read something that looks like it might be scary, so I want my guys, let's get out of there before the bad thing happens, which makes the bad thing happen, right? Because
Can you tell us about the damage? Just explain it to people how catastrophic this might be for what just happened with all the money Silicon Valley put in the bank, and the FDIC had to come and kind of just take over, right?
What's funny, yeah, a couple weeks ago, I was at a party, spoke to this dude who had just started a venture fund. And he's like, now we've raised $250 million, and now next week we're going to start deploying it. Like $250 million? And I remember, this was before any of this, I said, where do you park $250 million?
It's a problem I have, Doug. Yeah, it's
I was wondering, though, where do you put that? And he goes, well, there's this special bank, Silicon Valley Bank. It's the first time I ever heard of it. $250 million they have. You know how much each account is guaranteed up to? $250,000.
Oof.
So that means there's $249,750,000 potentially gone.
That just, inshallah, it'll be there.
Right.
Inshallah, maybe.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
But, it's not, and so maybe they're rich venture capitalists that got the money, you invested, you lost it. But what the problem is when a bank of that size can't pay its depositors, there's real companies. So I have two friends who are at companies that are laying people off because their payroll is in that bank and they can't get the money. They can't get the money out right now. Maybe they'll get it. Maybe someone will make them good. Maybe the taxpayers will bail. Can you imagine? So the taxpayers are going to bail out Thiel and Zuckerberg and Musk and
it's don't go there. Don't will it into existence. But it's been happening for the past 15 years.
Right. So what they're doing now, the Fed is looking at it. I promise this is exactly what they're looking at. What is the systemic risk of this? Can we let this bank fail and be an example of don't do these things, bad boys? Or do we have to bail them out to prevent the ripple effect?
But look, this has happened again and again. It's almost like a Groundhog's Day that we've seen this cycle repeat. But we're at a moment where this young generation in particular is like, maybe we shouldn't have billionaires.
Right.
Maybe climate change is going to kill us and y'all should invest in us.
Yeah.
Maybe we should have affordable health care. Maybe women should have rights. You see this tension bubbling up where people are saying, we need the systems to change.
Right.
Do you think that change is now? Because my fear is, having survived the 2008 financial crisis, we bailed out the banks, too big to fail, and you fast forward 15 years and we just never learn.
And each time we cycle it, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
Which is happening in the last 3 years during the pandemic.
Exactly. The wealth differential increases. Yes, they're going to do this now. If they don't do it now, there's not another chance,
Wow, really?
Yeah, this is it. This is it. Right. People say, oh, when do you think this is going to happen? When's climate change going to happen? We're in it. You're soaking in it. This is it. We are over the event horizon, right? This is it. We're in it. It doesn't mean everything ends. It means we are in the crisis. We are in the, whatever you want to call it, the meta crisis. So it's now or never. This is the time. And I see it everywhere. I think if nothing else, the beauty of AI is it helps people realize, oh, wait a minute, what are humans? So the book before this was called Team Human, where I was arguing.
Are you now on Team AI?
No, I'm on Team Human. I'm always on Team Human. not against AI. AIs can serve humans. I'm not even scared. People, it's just, we've got to flip the script in our head. So, I was just on CNN, they're talking about AI. They're, what about the unemployment problem? And I said, well, why is unemployment necessarily a problem? What about the unemployment solution? If robots want to do all the work, I'm happy to do all the play, right? It's a matter of...
But we have to invest in the play.
Right.
Right? But you say flip the script, and we're living in America, in a country where we worship money, to the point where people who have money, who have inherited money, I don't know, people like Trump, people see that and say, that man should lead because he is rich. Right. Richness by itself is a value, is something that is a superhero quality. How do we flip the script on that, the American consciousness that worships and values money and sees that as the premier quality of a person?
Well, it's almost easier to start by looking at the poor person and realizing that's not their fault. And right now, we still do. When someone on your block loses their job, you think, oh, I wonder how he screwed up. I wonder, it's like, no, the precarity
Can happen to anyone.
First they came for the cab drivers, and I said nothing. I'm not a cab driver. And they're coming for the programmers now. When 6% of Google employees are laid off because they're going to be replaced by AI, it's like, okay.
And 5 years ago, I was like, Google's a great place. Stay there forever.
Yeah, well, they wanted to, and maybe it was. They got free food.
Yeah.
You get free food, free lunch.
Everything. Free food, bowling alley, you get your
laundry
done. I was like the utopia, because I used to live in the Bay Area, and my friends were like, this place is amazing.
You imagine?
Big tech. We should do big tech everywhere. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And now we're seeing the consequences.
Right. And it's because the way they were making money was not enough. Google with ads was fine. They're making however many $1 billion a year. And then they said, what else you got, kid? And that's when they went, oh, we got data.
That wasn't enough.
Right.
That's never enough. It's a human problem. Greed.
Ultimately it is. Ultimately it is. And that's why, and it's this idea, again, this survival of the richest mentality, this kind of bastardization of Darwin. These guys genuinely believe nature is a battle for survival of the fittest individual. It's not what Darwin wrote. I'm trying to beg them, just read the Darwin, or read Darwin in translation, or whatever.
Cliff Notes.
Right. What he was writing about was he was amazed at the way species cooperate and collaborate in order to ensure mutual survival. We know now that the thing we were taught in school about the big tree shades the little tree so the little tree doesn't get sunlight, that's not true. The big tree is sharing nutrients with the little tree under the soil.
All connected.
All connected. Right, and then the big tree loses its leaves and the little evergreen sends nutrients back up to the big one. That's the way reality works. It's not about making enough money so you can escape from reality. But that's the legacy of capitalism, which has always been about not creating value, but financializing other people's value creation, and scientism, which goes back to Francis Bacon and the invention of empirical science, where he said, science will let us take nature by the forelock, hold her down, and submit her to our will, right? Which is a pretty dark, it's a sexual abuse fantasy, as what science is for. So if you're going to understand things by deanimating them, colonizing them, and controlling them, you're going to end up really unhappy as a winner in that scenario. And that's where the billionaires are. They're so unhappy that all they can imagine is the rest of us coming for their hides when we figure out what's going on.
I think it could be summarized as, he who dies with the most spaceships still dies, but dies on top.
Yeah, of what?
lot of spaceship debris.
Yeah.
For those who are saying there should be no billionaires, do you agree with that sentiment?
Yeah, ideally. There's no reason. I mean, when I do talks at business schools, I always start by saying, how many of you here would be satisfied just making just $50 million? If you can, and I would tell you, if you can bring yourself to be okay with making just $50 million, I can give you a much easier way to move through life and business.
But I want 51.
Yeah, well, 51's okay too.
51's
but then I try to get them down to 10. What if you only had $10 million? Could you
Panic attack? Panic attack.
They want the billion. They want the home run because it's all or nothing.
Can you look at this camera? This is your camera.
Hey.
And suppose you're talking to the billionaires and the 1%. Can you make a case to them for them to pay their taxes so that money can be reinvested in the rest of us?
I can't, because when I've tried to do that, they say, well, look, if someone wants to give charity, let them give charity, rather than taking the taxes. What I would tell the billionaires to do is to consider how much more fun your business would be if we reversed capital gains tax with dividend and payroll tax. So instead of taxing capital gains low and dividends high, we tax dividends low and capital gains high. Then you could run your companies without thinking about the exit, without thinking about the taxable event. Instead, you're going to run a company that's going to make lots of money. Wouldn't you rather run a company that makes money than run a company that you have to sell to the mob in order to get your money out? Right? So consider that. And if you lobby for it, if it happens for everybody at the same time, right? We just change the tax code, you get to run a very different kind of business. You get to run a business that you get to keep instead of having to sell.
I thought it was convincing. I'm going to park my $250 million in my '97 Camry, and hopefully, my fictional $250 million, and hopefully we can reinvest it in humanity. But the message is empathy, compassion, community, connectivity. It makes us all better.
Right. Learn to look in other people's eyes and you'll recalibrate yourself accordingly.
This is why you are top 10 intellectual, sir.
Well, if I was more influential, I think the world would be a different place.
And you have this book. The book, again, is Survival of the Richest, Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires by Douglas Rushkoff. It's out now. Thank you all for watching. Our studio interviews are live streaming during the conference on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SXSW. And you can see our complete schedule of studio interviews on our website at sxsw.com/studio. I'm your host, Wajahat Ali. So long for now.